Look, if you're interested in Web3 and you're interested in gaming, this next panel is the one for you, and it is absolutely stacked. I hope you all are ready for this one. Without further ado, welcome to the stage your moderator, Emily, and she will be joined by Roham, Alexander, Sebastian, and Robbie. Clap it up one time for this incredible panel. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
I'm living in that 21st century, doing something mean to it. Do it better than anybody you ever seen. Do it scream for
Wow. I don't think I've ever had that reaction when moderating a panel before, so that's really great.
That's normal.
Yeah, exactly. When I've got superstars on the stage like this, I mean, it should be expected.
I think Alex is used to this. I don't know. I'm not.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We're going to be talking about Web3 gaming. What else? But specifically, we're going to be focusing on the engagement side of it, because I'm sure you've all heard about every different kind of Web3 gaming today. We've definitely got a stellar panel. If they need no introduction, please shout. But, I mean, do you want to go around and do a little bit by yourself first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Alexander, chairman and co-founder and COO at Sky Mavis, creators of Axie Infinity and the Rona Network.
Hey, everyone. My name is Sébastien Borget. I'm
That's where the woos are coming from.
COO and co-founder at the Sandbox, a decentralized virtual world, as well as the president of the Blockchain Game Alliance, an organization that now counts over 600 members and whose mission is to promote adoption of blockchain within the game industry.
I'm Robbie Young. I work at Animoca Brands, and we make games.
Hey everybody, my name is Roham Garagozlu. I'm founder and CEO of Dapper Labs. We're the makers of CryptoKitties, as well as NBA Top Shot, NFL All Day, Disney Pinnacle. But I'm also here representing Flow, which is the blockchain that everything we build runs on.
Great. Well, so if we want to kind of get started with an all-rounder question, then we can kind of go into everybody's specific areas. But I wanted to do a bit of a check-in to start with on whether or not you think adoption is happening at the rate that you would want it to be happening right now for each of your games. I mean, Animoca, maybe you'd have to be a bit broader, but do you want to start with Axie, with Ronin?
Sure. So I think I would lie if I said that it's happening fast enough. I think we all come into the space thinking that this year it's finally going to go to every person in the world. And then we come to the realization that crypto is actually a lot about cycles. And it's oftentimes actually tied to the price of the crypto assets, because that's when you're able to get a lot of attention, and that attention then can be converted into users into the games. My belief is eventually we'll get to the point where the quality of the games surpass this whole cycle, not hell that we're in, but definitely an interesting place in the industry where cycles oftentimes can determine the success rate or launch of a game particularly. But at the end of the day, the games will be of high enough quality that they can break out of the cycle pattern, and that's when I think we'll see real mainstream adoption. We're starting to see a little bit of it, but I don't think we're quite there yet.
And what about Sandbox?
I think we can take the question from anywhere. So maybe I'd like to do a quick poll in the audience. Like, who's familiar with Sandbox? Please raise your hand.
Oh, that's a lot of people.
Oh, wow.
That's good.
See? So it's not too bad. It's not too bad across this audience. Now, who played Sandbox? Please raise your hand. Less. And that's where we have to bridge the gap. That's kind of the gap between people who are aware about Web3, who embrace the ideology of Web3 and want and enjoy the community-driven aspect of it. But then what do we do to make them step in and start to play the product, play the game that we're building on the platform? I think it's more a matter of time and education, essentially, that will drive it, and also keep improving overall the fun factor within what we are creating, that it will happen. 2024 might be a great year for that aspect.
Yeah, everyone's feeling that way. I mean, and for Robbie, for Animoca games, I mean, you've got Motiverse that you just launched. How about that? What's the adoption like there?
So I think speaking generally, and this applies, frankly, to all our projects, I think from an adoption standpoint, the big problem is that user acquisition is broken generally for games. And this is a Web 2 problem as well as a Web 3 problem. We don't have, particularly in the Web 3 community, really kind of institutionalized channels for advertising and promotion and cross-marketing and ways to market our products to broad audiences. These things have existed in Web 2 for a while, and then IDFA happened, and it's gotten much harder in Web 2. But in Web 3, we're still kind of finding our way as to the best ways in which to reach new pockets of users. And that's why with things like Motorverse, I always encourage people to lean into interoperability and try to provide utility for other games, other NFT collections outside of your ecosystem, because it's a great way to onboard other communities and share, experiences with them.
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything, but the problem with the cyclical adoption is that it often brings a lot of unsustainable growth, or users that are coming in looking for speculation, whereas like in the past 18 months, we've just had the chance to build for a sustainable community that's there for the joy of the product in a lot of ways. So just in terms of numbers, about 40,000 people in NBA Top Shot alone over the last month logged in to look at their collection and start to prepare for what's next. But I think the next unlock is absolutely engagement. And for those of you that haven't gone back to Top Shot for a while, you should, because there's a new game mode called Fast Break, on-chain game that people can come and play every day with their moments. And it's not just about collecting anymore, not just the marketplace, but also daily engagement loops that are actually free for a lot of people that already have those assets. And so we see a future where the products that we're building are attracting not just crypto people that are coming because there's economic dynamics, but also, frankly, there's millions of people in the last 12 months that traded billions of dollars in physical trading cards, a lot of it digitally on marketplaces like StockX and others. How do we bring that fun into the app experience and make it something that appeals to sports fans, not only crypto people?
And so, I know this is NFT Paris, this is an NFT conference, but a lot of the games that are on this stage also have some degree of, in-game cryptocurrencies or tokens that you can trade elsewhere. And on this stage last year, I was on a panel with Alex, and we were talking about how you wanted to do more with tokens in the coming years. You wanted to go crazy with them, do new things, experiment. Do you still think that tokens are the future of how you incentivize users to stick with you?
Yeah, so going back 12 months, I think talking about using tokens in games was seen as something very negative, because the industry had course-corrected too far to what I would call games just have to be fun. And I think it's a very basic level thing, an easy level thing for people to say, but it doesn't really have any meaning because, of course, all games have to be fun. But what makes Web3 blockchain games unique is the digital ownerships that you get through NFTs, but also the unique economic incentives that game developers can create to acquire new users, so you don't even have to use the traditional platforms. So to me, I think that when we made Axie Infinity and we created the two-token model, it was a stroke of genius in the sense that it unlocked something brand new for the industry, but there was also a lot of things with it that needed to be improved. So I think we will see it like hundreds of iterations, and we're already seeing it, maybe thousands of iterations on that type of model, which then again will lead us to the sustainability that we need in this industry, and that is going to be very token-driven as well. Because to me, at least that's what I believe. Because tokens you can drive the type of behavior that you want, and from a game perspective, of course, we want players. My goal is to get every single person in the world onboarded into Web3. That's what I want. And I think if we can do that through games, that has to happen through incentivization, because that's a part of how we can separate ourselves from normal or different kind of Web 2 games. But it's not necessarily only about that. Incentivization is to start, and then quality of products, using NFTs to show people ownership. Like that's where a lot of the magic happens, I would say, not only about the speculative part.
Is there anyone that would disagree with that thinks that NFTs, digital ownership, is the thing first before?
Well, I mean, I just want to say, you can use tokens to incentivize at different actions, but you can also use tokens to transfer ownership of the actual experience back to the users. And I don't think we've seen that play out yet in the market, but I think using tokens as the end game rather than the start is also another pattern I think we'll see play out over and over again, because people are investing so much of their time and energy in these digital worlds that they often have very little or zero kind of grounding in, and that token economy can be a way to give it back to the customer. And I think on Flow especially, you'll see maybe not necessarily Dapper Labs, but other developers experimenting with this method of, hey, build a game up front, then transfer ownership to the community. And that's why we're investing so much in DeFi and sort of Ethereum compatibility on Flow over the next 12 months or so. And the other thing I'll say is the tokens can be part of the ecosystem that exists on top of the game, whether that's the lending protocols, whether that's the sort of DeFi things that consumers will use, because now they're spending a lot of their time and energy in digital worlds. They're gaining identities and reputations and assets that can then be used in other kinds of maybe non-game protocols that also have their own tokens secured on the network. So I think that concept of the token as just the thing that drives adoption is certainly unique to Web3 and should be used. But also think about it on the other side of, okay, now I have a game, it's fun, it's enjoyable. How do I use the tokens to give the game to the biggest users, and in a sense, a retention play rather than an acquisition play?
I think maybe another way you could think about it is also that we all dream of having truly interoperable games where you could bring your playable NFTs from one game to another. But that's actually really hard in practice, as we know. We all came together to make a nonprofit, OMA3, to actually try to solve this problem. But as an intermediary stage, one way you can think about transferring your stuff from game to game is by transferring the value that you have, so that you can actually unlock value from one game through fungible tokens and bring that value to another game. So as an intermediary solution, it's a way for you to facilitate some level of interoperability.
I think we've already seen like multiple phases of experimentation and wave in blockchain gaming. Like Axie Infinity started by launching first the Axis, and it was almost like a Kickstarter. Like it was launched, the community bought it, they become stakeholder in the gameplay, and then afterward the game came out. Sandbox like lands came, people bought the land but could build on it but not publish it until very recently. So it drove a certain level of engagement and participation. But at some point, when too much of the industry have been utilizing the same mechanics and didn't deliver fast enough on like the actual utility of the token, or for both like the cryptocurrencies or the NFTs themselves, players kind of lost patience. They lost patience, or they look other way, and it became like too much redundant, and only very few projects with actual gameplay and actual utility went through that period of time. So I think like now, like most of the projects that are starting or entering the space, they are no longer like attracting players for the token first. They just allow anyone to play the core gameplay from the start, and the token becomes something that's rewarding the players for their engagement, their playtime, but only afterwards, once they've been hooked for the gameplay itself, not for like the tokenomics of it. Once you've spent your own time as a player or as a creator, like in Sandbox, it's valuable to you. You understand the meaning of the value of that digital asset that you spent hours to earn through your hard effort as a gamer, and you understand the benefit of like owning it, maybe wanting to sell it on the marketplace to eventually make a profit out of it, etc. But starting from there without the core game doesn't make so much sense nowadays, and that's why like the beauty of this space is things evolve very fast already. So we're past that first hushing area of just like, let's launch a token, use it for fundraising, and let's wait 2 years to build something. Like gamers are no longer waiting for that.
What about the other version of starting this game where you start with free-to-play, no blockchain, no tokens that you can see as a user, and then you kind of encourage adoption? We were talking about Pixels, the game that's also on Ronin. You don't have to have a wallet connected to start playing that game. That is a way that a lot of people are bringing you into Web3 games now. Is that the future of engagement? Is that the way you encourage more adoption?
Yeah, so for those of you who are not so familiar, Pixels, one of the games on Ronin that we have worked very closely with, there were about 360,000 daily active players as of 2 days ago or so. And a lot of what they are doing right, I think, is tapping into both extrinsic motivation, right? So people can play the game, they have the opportunity to maybe earn some tokens, but it's also intrinsically quite fun in terms of, it's a farming game. The play pattern is very similar to what you would find in Stardew Valley. So they're definitely doing something right there. But the real question, I think, is when is the conversion point between being a free-to-play player that's just farming, maybe they want to do something, but becoming a Web3 native or someone who owns their own wallet, has their private key, or through using MPC technology, just use their email, but they still have the understanding that this is a wallet. I think that conversion point is somewhere we have to, or at least at Sky Mavis, we're looking really deeply into, and how do we incentivize people to actually become real Web3 users.
Well, you're looking into it. What have you found?
I can't share I can't share everything that we found, because obviously we try to share that with the closest partners that we have. But at a very high level, you can think about it from a funnel perspective in game design. Like at the top of it, free-to-play players, then eventually they become buyers, and then maybe you lose 90%, 95%. Out of that, like the conversion points, is it 5% after that? It's going to be 10%. We have to see, and we don't have enough data yet.
And I mean, between Sandbox and I guess something like NBA Top Shots, those are games that are very much reliant on brands as well as a way to attract people in. With Sandbox, you might have a brand that's made a space within the metaverse. People know what NBA is very, very much so. How do you encourage those users to stick with you once they've kind of explored, had a little look? I mean, what are the tactics you're employing?
Well, I mean, our product is a little different than most games because there is no free to play. You have to pay to sort of get started. Once you have assets, then you can play with them. So in a sense, it's got that barrier up front. But then you see really high retention of actually folks that come through. And for us, we feel like we've solved a lot of the onboarding problems where you can just download the app, jump into the experience, double tap, get your first NFT. But what's important is for the other side, let that user go and explore what else is there to do with the NFT you just got, and let a developer be able to build for that NFT without having to go through Dapper Labs. That's where we went wrong in the first 3 years of our essentially product architecture. And as of this summer, every user with a Dapper wallet will be able to, so they onboard without even understanding what is a wallet, I'm just coming in-app purchase, getting my first asset, but then I go to settings, and I say link my account. That then gives me my first wallet, and you get a little app store of here's all the things you can now do with your NFT, from put it into a DeFi protocol and get some liquidity to go spend in another product, to here's a game that's actually incentivizing you to go play their game because they know you're a big spender in the first experience. So they're sort of like trying to acquire our users from us, but we don't care because it's more value to our users. And so that kind of idea of that moment of delight being, hey, I got my first thing, now I press one button and it's boom, Web3 is sort of this open, accessible world, which frankly should also not be you can only get this stuff on this chain. It should be you can get any stuff on any chain, and seamless bridging and interoperability, et cetera. That's, I think, the future where we can credibly say millions of people can use Web3 and get the benefits of it without actually having to go through the struggle. And so I think onboarding is critical, but so is on the sort of the back end on the flip side. And in terms of like how we have NBA, we have NFL, we have Disney, and there is fantastic brand recognition, which is very cool. But on the other hand, we also have to push and pull and make sure that openness and that decentralization can be respected even with these properties, because a digital asset being an NFT, there's something special about that because it's tradable, et cetera. But the coolest thing about it is that it's part of this wider world where others can build for it, where your assets are visible for everyone to see. And I hope that there's folks in the audience that are focused on distribution networks, social networks, things that make people proud of the stuff they own that are in these sort of open networks rather than in closed silos like the progress I have in my Roblox or whatever it might be. So I think it's a push and pull.
And I mean, Robbie, you were speaking about interoperability earlier. We're lucky on this panel to have quite a few different projects from your universe. I mean, how important is it at Animoca that you try and impress upon the projects you invest in to make themselves able to operate with other parts of your universe?
Sure. I think we try not to force the issue, but I try to encourage everybody to do so. And that applies, frankly, for anybody who's in Web3. Because I do think that if you're not taking advantage of the network effects that are offered by interoperability, then you're actually just wasting a resource because it's an opportunity for you. And it's an opportunity to onboard more users. It's like Alex knows very well the example of Pixels he was just talking about. When Pixels moved to Ronin, they discovered a new audience who was already on Ronin. And so that was a method of user acquisition for them also, considering moving into another environment. And so it's a way for you to use interoperability to also expand your portfolio.
Yeah, I can add to that. Like, as you mentioned, we've been working with brands, and typically when we partner with a brand, we launch an avatar collection of a few thousand unique avatars, which are, each one of them is NFTs. And anyone can play for free the experience from the brand, but the one who play with those avatars, we've seen like a much higher level of retention and engagement, like 80% retention after 30 days. They keep staying on the platform, using their avatar and exploring more content that now is actually made by other brands or made by the creators themselves. Since we opened publishing on Sandbox 3 months ago, we have about 1,000 experiences that are made by the community that now start being explored by those players. So it also drives audiences, and we see like on average, a user, instead of experiencing just one, start to be 2.5, 3 experiences on average, which start to grow and increase the discovery and time spent on the platform. And interoperability has been playing a major role in the growth of Sandbox as well. We not only launched 17 official collections ourselves, but we enabled 50 of the blue chip avatar collection, like Bored Ape, Clonex, Cool Cat, World of Women, and many more, which were just like 2D profile picture NFTs to become 3D playable avatars. And we drove those community, a portion of them, sometimes only 10%, sometimes as high as 80% of them, to engage, to play together, to connect in a social hub, sometimes to become creators themselves. And that's been a great driver of adoption, of user acquisition using Web3 leverage. And also for those communities to engage their own users even more than a traditional Discord, Telegram channel, or traditional experience that they provide beyond their core community games or activities. So it's beneficial for everyone. And I touched a little bit about those network effects in Web3 that we're seeing. And I think it should be more and more a pattern that the industry should look forward, because it's really beneficial at the end of the day.
And now that you have those holders in your game, they might own some NFTs, they might own some of your crypto, they're a full user, how do you cater to what they expect to be receiving as a holder of an NFT in your game, while also still retaining freedom as a studio to be developing things, trying new things, experimenting? It was something that you and I discussed not long ago, is the balancing act between what users demand and what you want to provide.
So it's a very, I think, sensitive topic to talk about. And I would guess almost everyone here, probably everyone, owns some kind of NFT. And the real question then is, like, what are the expectations that the consumers have when it comes to that NFT? Is it supposed to, and how do you evaluate it? If you think about value from a perspective of this asset is supposed to produce X amount of yield, then it becomes quite difficult to justify some of the crazy valuations that you have had in the space. So you have to start thinking about the other parts of it that kind of is additive, right? So if the yield is at the bottom, right, so you have identity markers, like you belong to a tribe. If you own a Mystic Axie, for example, you get access to some very special community. You get access to talking to the founders. I'm sure you guys have all experience with that when it comes to holding some unique NFT, right? You get access levels. All of these things, like they add up, and then at the end of the day, it's like, do you identify with that NFT, or with the other people that are owning it too, right? It's a luxury thing almost, right? You own it and then you connect with the tribe. So I would say that from a product or from a project perspective, trying to enforce some kind of floor price or even talking about the prices of some of these assets are incredibly sensitive and difficult. And it's not something that we do. Like, the market has to decide the value of it. As a project, we can do our best to make sure that the holders of our assets, they feel seen and they feel like we listen to them and we're building for them. We're building to make them feel like that they love what it is that we are doing here. And then the value, I guess, comes from there rather than only the underlying yield, even if that is oftentimes what people come from in the beginning.
And Roram, is that something you can speak to as well? I mean, that might be why a lot of people come to NBA Top Shot, is because they think, well, if I own this specific thing, it might be something that gains value and I can sell for profit down the line.
Yeah, I actually thought that was a great answer. And I think it is that balancing act of, hey, we're building all these products for the community, both the community today as well as the community tomorrow. Top Shot is also a more difficult situation because we've got something like 40 million NFTs in existence. So it's much different than a 10K profile pick project. And Top Shot had to go through its sort of cycle of people learning to value the different assets in different ways and understanding, hey, there's only 30 of this particular asset, even though there's 60,000 of this other one. And you see those supply-demand dynamics playing out in the market. The other piece of it is now we have a set of sort of utility for the moments that are actually deflationary. So even though 40 million moments were minted, in the last 12 months, more than 10 million have been taken out of circulation, mostly through burning, but also different forms of locking. That to the customer, this isn't sort of a crypto staking. It's more, hey, I'm showing my fandom for this player. I'm going up on the player leaderboard by locking the assets, or I'm getting some sort of reward by locking the set, just the way I would put it in a sort of glass case and saying, hey, I'm not gonna sell it. And through those mechanisms, we've sort of let the market determine, hey, A, what's most valuable, but B, we have mechanisms where some of the most valuable things end up getting taken out of circulation by being used inside the fast break game and other things. And even a 2%, 3% change in the circulating supply of a particular high value asset can have a huge impact on its price. So it's just an interesting dynamic where you see the market kind of interplaying the utility that is inherent within the moments with sort of the status and access benefits that it brings, along with sort of that speculative dynamic of, you know, at least within sports, hey, this rookie is going to be Rookie of the Year. So Wembanyama, for example, has been just off the charts every time we release a pack in Top Shot. That same pack sells on the PAX marketplace for multiple times the price we sold it for. But then when you pull a Wembanyama, that's basically, you know, you've sort of won the lottery ticket because people believe in that particular player so much. And it's less about the value we put on that asset, but it's more the value the market puts on that asset. But the mechanisms we built help people get more utility out of the stuff they have, take stuff out of circulation if they don't want it anymore, upgrade their older moments into newer moments. And it all sort of starting to work in a way that results in prices on the marketplace that make sense to an NBA fan. This player does well, prices go up. He gets injured, prices go down. And that's sort of more understandable to that audience. Even though it is very economic in nature, it sort of makes sense in the context of the sport.
One last question, I think, probably for Robbie, because it's something that we talked about before, but about, you know, something that we haven't really addressed is the way that Web2 games typically do engagement. And that's through making games that people want to go back to again and again, but particularly through mechanisms that can be addictive. Specifically, you know, for mobile games, it's a big thing, making it so that you want to keep going back and playing more sessions. How are you seeing that play out in Web3, if at all? Because it became a dirty word in Web2 in the end.
Well, I think one of the things about Web2 games that was a problem that people were always trying to solve was retention, particularly on mobile, because retention was notoriously poor. And in fact, with Web3, and this is what I would encourage those of you who might be Web2 game developers in the audience, Web3 actually solves that pretty much from the start, because ownership is a completely different paradigm. So when your players and your customers own stuff, they tend to be sticky, just in the same way that if you buy a vacation home, you'll take all your vacations to your vacation home because you own it, right? It's sticky. And so the same thing happens in games. So in Web3, we tend to actually then focus on different problems. User acquisition, obviously, as we've talked about, much bigger issue than if you have a mobile game on a platform where there are already 2 billion handsets. So if you want to make an Android game, there's a big marketplace out there. So we just focus, I think, on different problems, but retention is actually not one of them.
All right. Do you want to have a final word, and then we'll go?
Well, I think like at Sandbox, I don't know if people realize, but our most popular NFT is actually land. We have 166, 464 of them. We sold about 75% of them. And the way we retain, engage, and build value over it over a long time, and it's really sticky. Like people don't flip their land, don't sell their land anymore. They hold to it. Is by being consistent in how we release regularly every quarter, every 6 months, a major product update of our creation tools. And we support the creators. Actually, I think like a great portion of what Sandbox is like creating is a game in Sandbox. Like we're building together this open metaverse. We are part of a neighborhood. We're neighbors on the map with our land. We are creating experience, not just for ourselves, but together. And that's affecting as well our perception of like how we're delivering the value to those users, to those creators, and to the community beyond. And that will be, again, this year our core focus. We are fully creator-focused. We're delivering the value first to the creators, the reward first to the creator with the different incentive and program we've launched. And I think the success of the platform, a user-generated platform like Sandbox, can only come if the creators themselves are successful. So that's my message to them.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining me. You've been a great panel.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you.